Today, I'm going to walk you through the lesson on creating your first programs. As usual, it's probably better to go ahead and read through the written piece of this lesson and then come back and go through the video after. To start, let's remind ourselves where we are from the previous lesson. So here we are in the terminal, and I'm in the home directory. Let's cd, change directory, back down into the demo directory that I made yesterday for the boot camp. Now yours may be called something else. I think in the written article I said to call it work or something like that. You can name it whatever you want, it doesn't matter. The important part is that you did the git clone in this folder. And you can tell because you'll have this bootcamp folder inside. So we're going to cd into bootcamp again. And when you hit ls, you should see the Vagrant file, this puppet directory, and all of this stuff, and you'll know you're in the right place. From here, you need to run Vagrant up and make sure that your Vagrant virtual machine is running. So you can see mine is coming up now. Okay, so my VM is running, and we can tell by running Vagrant status. So it's running. Now we're going to SSH into it. Okay, so this is where we were at yesterday. We've successfully SSH'd into our VM. Now I want you to change directory into /vagrant. Actually, let's go to cd/. That's going to take us to our root directory, and now type ls. And in here, you can see over here on the right, we have this Vagrant directory. Now this is very special, and we're going to change directory into it. cd vagrant, and then we're going to do ls. Now what's really interesting about this is if you look, this has the exact same contents as the bootcamp folder that you can see still up here at the top of the screen. Let me actually exit and show you what I mean. So if you type exit, it takes you back to your computer, and then type ls. And it has the same exact contents. And that's because these two folders are like a portal between your computer and the VM. So whatever is in the bootcamp folder on your computer, or if you were using a different VM or something else, it's not special about the name bootcamp. It's a connection between the directory on your computer where the Vagrant file is and this folder on the VM. So what makes this really awesome is it means that we can actually save code onto our computer, and then because of this connection we can run the code on the virtual machine. So let me show you what I mean. So if I go to my text editor and I open up this bootcamp folder, so let me find it. Bootcamp demo, bootcamp. So I'm going to open this whole folder. It's important that you open the whole folder and not the file. So here we go. So you can see that I have all of the contents of that directory that we saw through the terminal in here. To show you how these are connected, I'm actually going to create a new file in here. Let's just call it test.txt. It's not really important. You can put hey or whatever, hi, save it, and so now we're going to go back to the terminal, type ls. You can see we're still in the bootcamp folder, and now we have our MIT license, Vagrant file, all that stuff, and then we have this test.txt. So now go Vagrant SSH. Now we're back in here, cd/vagrant. Okay, now do ls, and we have this text or this test.txt. So that's pretty cool. Now what I like to do is kind of create a file structure inside of this Vagrant machine, or the Vagrant folder rather, so that when we run our Vagrant machine, we have a nicely structured way to keep multiple projects on the same VM. So let's do this. Go make directory projects, Now if we do ls, we see we have this projects directory now. And also, if we go back in here, we also have the projects directory. So it's pretty cool. So now cd into the projects directory. And as you can tell, we're going to have multiple projects inside of here. So now let's also make another directory. And let's just call it first programs. I think that's what we called it in the tutorial. Okay, now we can do cd first programs. Okay, what I like to do from here is actually go back to the text editor. Let's close down this. First of all, you can look and see we have all of our folders here. Sorry, my computer goes crazy when you hit the corners. So let's open up the directory that I just made for first programs. So this is back on my computer now. So bootcamp folder, then I created the projects folder, and then I created the first program. So what's cool is it actually creates the folders in both locations. I'm not 100% sure that that's the best way to explain that. It may just create it on your computer and then the VM picks it up. Either way, it exists in both locations. So let's open up the first programs folder through the text editor. So now we're here. Then in here, let's create a file. I do that by just control clicking here. You could probably do file new. If you do it through this interface, you have to be careful because if I try to save this now, let's see where it's going to put it. Yeah, so see, when I save it, just by creating it through the file new command or link, it tries to put it in the bootcamp thing, and so I have to go select. If I just control click here, right click if you're on Windows, I think you could probably do this, and you do new file, it's going to put it in the right place automatically, and you can see that because I'll save it and it's in first programs already. Anyway, that's hung me up a little bit before. So if I do hello.rb, now we're going to write some actual Ruby code. So I'm going to write puts hello world. This is like the classic first program you always write in every language. So here we go. Now let's go back to the virtual machine. So let's run ls inside of first programs, make sure we have our file, right? So we have hello.rb now. So to run this file, you just run ruby hello.rb. And it prints out your hello world. So that's, technically speaking, your first program. That's really not that exciting. So we're going to get a little bit more involved. But either way, congrats, that's your first Ruby program. At this point, I want to show you how to use something called IRB. IRB is a command line utility for running Ruby programs. So if we do IRB, you'll see this little interface come up here where we can run Ruby commands directly. So let's run exactly what we just did. We'll type it straight in, and you hit enter and it will print it out and return nil. Anytime you see this arrow, it's returning something. In this case, nil. We'll get more into this later, but for now let me explain this just briefly. So let me do 3 plus 2, and you see that it returns 5. So what that means is if I say a equals 3 plus 2, and it returns 5, now if I hit a, it's set equal to 5. So essentially what this means is like whatever, when I have something like 3 plus 2, that's an expression. If you're in math, you would call that like a mathematical expression, I think. Anyway, the point is, when I have an expression and it returns a value, I can set it equal to a variable, and the variable gets set equal to the value that is returned. So I don't know if that sounds complicated or not. Probably depends on your background. But just think about it this way. If I can set it equal to a value of an expression, it's going to get set equal to what's returned. So 3 plus 2 is 5. Anyway, pretty basic math, and it illustrates the idea pretty well, I think. We can use IRB to do all sorts of cool stuff like this. Not that 3 plus 2 is that awesome, but this comes in really handy whenever you need to debug a program or you have something a little more sophisticated that you want to see what it does. To get out, you can type quit. Also, another thing, depending on your system, you may see a lot more output than this 2.1.1 whatever. So if you want something different, you can go IRB -- simple prompt, and you just get the 2 arrows. From here, I'm going to show you how to do a few more interesting programs. We're going to basically just copy and paste what's in the written article, and I'm going to explain it a little bit, and then we're just going to run it and see what it does. Okay, so let's go back to the text editor. We're going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it user input.rb. Now, if I just paste in the code from what we had before, save it, and then we're going to go run it. Ruby user, you can just hit tab and it'll finish it out, I believe. Enter your favorite number. I'm going to go 9. The number you entered was 9. So it does exactly what we think it's going to do. So let's walk through this. So P just prints out this first line. Number, we're setting gets.chomp equal to the variable number. So gets is kind of the opposite of puts. So puts takes whatever string it's given or whatever and prints it out and returns nil. Gets is, it actually asks for user input. And this chomp method is actually, so whenever you see a dot something, we're actually calling a method on something. We'll explain that later, but just for now, just remember that. So we're going to get the user input, and then we're calling .chomp on it. Now, in this case, what .chomp is doing is it's getting rid of the new line that comes at the end. You'll see what I mean if I show you. So if we save it again, and then we run it again, enter your favorite number, 9. The number you entered was 9\n. What chomp does just removes that \n. That \n is, it just means a new line, which I think is created when we hit enter. So it's just removing that. I wouldn't worry too much about that right now, but I opened up this. If you want to look at any of the methods that we see, or that you see through here, you can go to ruby-doc.org. And they have all of these built-in methods that you can look at for all the different classes. The documentation is very extensive. But anyway, that's a place you can go if you're ever curious about any of the stuff that you see here. So anyway, let's put this back. The next interesting thing here, we're just printing out the number you entered was £, and then curly braces with number in the middle. This is a cool thing in Ruby called string interpolation. In other languages, you would see something like the number you entered was, and then you would do plus number. And that may actually work here, but this is the way that you normally do this in Ruby. If you have a variable and you want to pass it into a string, and it has to be double quotes, so that's important. But you put a £, with curly braces and then the variable, and it's just going to print out whatever it is.